Dean, it's good to be with you again.
Good to have you back again. Well, I was going to refer then to the report that needs to be produced by the Pentagon to lawmakers, and I never had really much confidence that anything much would be produced by June or July or whenever it is. And now I hear not long ago Marco Rubio coming out and saying that look, it's probably not going to be produced on time. I mean. Did that give you hope when they first announced that, or were you
Dean Caporella here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network? From alien abductions to monster-infested ranges, many black near-death experiences, close encounter experiences and more, we speak to some of the most amazing people on the planet, ready and willing to share their chilling stories with you. And they all come from the Alien Revealed live files here on the Paranormal
Is there a bigger picture unfolding
Network.
Oh, God, yes.
Well, the UAP report to Congress due sometime this month is not really that big of a
disclosure
deal,
moon
according
crosses
to
the
the Paradigm
Rubicon
Research Group's Stephen
December
Bassett.
16th,
Bassett, who is the
2017.
executive director of PRG, is one man we should
And
be
by
listening
that I
to.
mean this.
Bassett has been at the forefront of the disclosure debate since 1996.
I don't know how many
He's
people
been
have read
fighting
those New
for
York Times
disclosure
articles or seen
and
those
an end to the
clips.
truth embargo for
But
more
that
than
includes
25
every
years.
single member of
In
the
an interview
Pentagon.
with Aliens Revealed Live, Bassett
Everybody
is
in
not
the
that enamored with
CIA,
what
everybody in the
UAP report to
FBI,
Congress will
everybody in
reveal.
the
He wasn't really moved
pretty
when
much
it was
everybody in
first
the Air Force,
announced last
Navy.
December.
I assure you, it's probably
But as the
anybody in our
bigger
entire
part of the picture
national security
emerges, he
complex
says this is an
that is
important
not
part
seeing those
of
New
what
York Times
seems to be
stories or
a
watch those
complicated
clips.
chess game.
I can't think of
larger process,
anything more
according to Bassett,
compelling
he
that
describes
they would pay
as the
attention to. I mean,
disclosure
there are plenty of
train.
things they don't really care
What
about.
does that even
but
mean?
That
Has this disclosure
So the
train
whole
even left the
military
station?
intelligence
And can
complex
anyone get on it?
was introduced to
Bassett
those
says
videos.
the
For those that didn't
self-disclosure
know what
events
was
of the
going
past
on,
few
those that
years, starting
did,
with a New York Times article on Tic Tac videos in 2017, are
what was
all
the message
part
that
of
they
this
got?
bigger picture.
They
The
figured at
UAP
that
report
moment,
to
if they
Congress
hadn't
is
already
part of the
figured it out,
process. While we
they
may not see
realized
anything
that,
too
hey,
startling revealed later this month,
very
Bassett
soon the
says we are
disclosure
headed
train
towards
is
the
going to be
finish
leaving
line.
the station.
The reason the UAP report to Congress
It's
was called
pretty
was
much
to see
over.
if aerial phenomena
There's
reported
some
in our
timing factors
skies
and other
by
things.
fighter and
Politics
commercial
right now is
pilots,
pretty messy, but
military
nevertheless,
departments and
one
other
way or another,
sources
it's
would be a
almost
threat
over.
to the United
This isn't
States.
1950s.
But Stephen Bassett is not really worried about what the report
or
says.
73 or
He's
93.
more interested in that it completes
This
another
is
step towards full
2017.
disclosure.
And
He
this
says what
issue
we're
is
seeing
extremely
now
well developed
is
and all
people,
over the world and everything else, and they
departments,
know
and
other things.
agencies positioning themselves to be on the right side of
Which
disclosure.
is what
The UAP
people
truth embargo has been in
that
place at least since Roswell.
took a great
The
risk
deny
and
approach
a
has
substantial
been insulting to the
financial
general public.
sacrifice
People
to
have been
become
hurt
part
during
of the
this
To the
process.
Stars
Some
Academy
have even lost their
and
lives
be the
under
point of the
suspicious
spirit.
circumstances. So what
Okay.
happens after the UAP
So,
report is
now
presented
what?
later this month to Congress?
It's like this.
Stephen Bassett says the goal here is to get congressional hearings, and he believes the congressional
You have a
hearings
choice.
will be the
Everybody
end game.
in Congress,
There
everybody
are
at the
people and
Department of
agencies
Defense,
seen as part of
anybody
the
and
truth
everybody
embargo who are now
that is
looking for a soft
somebody
landing on the other side
has a
of full
choice to make.
disclosure. That's why right
And
now
they
we're
have-
seeing
they've had a lot
everyone
more time to
from
make this
Senator
choice than I think
Marco
they would have if
Rubio
the plans
to
had
the
gone
Navy
on the
appearing to get
original
on
schedule.
board this disclosure
And that
train.
is this.
There's
Are you
still
going to
so
get
much
on the
to play out
disclosure
during this
train,
period.
or are you going to
There'll be
stand,
plenty
stay
of
on the
jockeying and
platform and let
positioning
it
going
lead
on
without you?
from those wanting to be seen on the right side of history.
I'm on that train.
I spoke
Greer's
with
on that
Stephen
train. I
Bassett
got a
for
ton of
several
colleagues on
hours
that
recently. The
All the
following
To the Stars
excerpt
Academy
is from
people are
our
on that
interview,
train to launch on
and it
that
makes for
train.
fascinating listening. In it,
But what about
Bassett
everybody
talks
else?
about the UAP report,
And you say, well, what does
the
it
bigger
matter?
picture, when to
It's
expect
simple.
congressional hearings on the
If you
UAP
don't get on that
topic.
train, then you're
He
on the
talks
platform.
about the purpose of To the
Disclosure
Stars
has just
Academy
taken
during
place.
this whole process,
The announcement has
whether
been
the
made
truth
by the
embargo
president.
is on its last legs,
More hearings are
what
being
would happen
scheduled.
if
Other
formal
heads of state
contact
are
took
jumping
place
in,
before the
and
hearings,
post-disclosure
the
world
ET
has begun,
involvement in the
and
whole disclosure
10,000
process,
reporters are
and
going
what
to
if another
descend on
country
that platform
usurps the US
and
and
want to
declares
know
disclosure
why
with
you
supporting
didn't say
evidence?
anything.
Hi, Steve.
What did you know? When did you know it? Why didn't you say anything? Why are you still not saying anything? Right? In other words, they're on the platform because they've refused to speak to the issue. They've refused to get involved, be supportive, whatever. They're still standing there with their arms crossed, going, the people don't have a right to know this, and I'm not going to tell them. And I never want this out. Embargo today, embargo tomorrow, embargo forever. And I suddenly, there's 1,000 reporters in front of you are going, I hate to tell you, but it's just been confirmed that's not going to be an easy thing. That is not going to be a place you want to be.
Right.
In other words, public relations-wise, it's really kind of awkward. So what you are seeing unfolding for the last 3.5 years, December 17, 18, 19, 20, 3.5 years, is one person after another and or agency getting on the disclosure train, saying something, doing something, responding in some way that shows I'm helping here. I'm part of the solution. I'm not closed-minded. I think this needs to be looked at. One after another. All right?
Mm-hmm.
The Navy got on the disclosure train repeatedly by responding to the TTSA's footage and those articles. They changed their protocols on the pilots. They gave pilots more assurance that they could report. They confirmed that the footage that was released to the New York Times was, in fact, by Navy F-18s. And then eventually they confirmed that what they filmed was unidentified aerial phenomena. Navy's on board. The Army got on board a little bit when they happened to announce they were doing a cooperative research program called a CRADA with TTSA, which was the way the Army's way of saying, well, we feel it's legitimate. Otherwise, why in the hell would we do a cooperative project with them? That was good. The Air Force hadn't said much of anything. The Air Force better get on board the train pretty soon, or it's going to get very embarrassing. So you had that. Journalists have been getting on the train. Gideon Lewis Krauss just wrote an extraordinary, he's a superb writer, just wrote a massive article on April 30th in the New Yorker, which had never done a piece on this issue, a serious piece on this issue ever.
Right.
And he gets into all of it. So I think he just got on the disclosure train, though he does have a little fun in that article. And who else? Well, he just can't keep up. Marco Rubio got on the disclosure train when, after being briefed by Christopher Mellon and possibly other witnesses, decided, let's put some language in the defense appropriations bill that will be signed in late 2020 that the Intelligence Committee would appreciate it if certain agencies, including the Navy and the ONI, the Office of the Operation Naval Intelligence, would provide us information and summaries of what we're doing and how we're dealing with this and so forth for our benefit to the Senate Intel Committee, so we could decide whether we want to hold hearings or something. It wasn't a legal binding thing. It wasn't a legal aspect of the act. It was in the comment section. It was essentially a request, read command performance, by the very powerful Senate Intelligence Committee, which was headed by Marco Rubio at the time, now by Mark Warner. And guess what? It was a brilliant move on Marco Rubio's part, who very much wants to be the president of the United States. Mm-hmm. Because it has garnished tremendous attention from him. He's been in articles all over the place. People can't talk about it. And it was a safe political move for Senator Rubio. Why? Because one, he wasn't running for election in 2020. So he didn't have that problem. And secondly, he put a 180-day deadline. It just stretched it out into 2021, June, in fact, mid-June. So the whole presidential thing will be resolved by then and things will settle down. No political risk for him. Great move. Rubio's on the disclosure train. Welcome, Marco. Others began to come forward. Examples include John Brennan. Mm-hmm. Actually, I can give you a few names here. Hang on a second. And this is all fairly recent, but you've got former national security people practically falling all over themselves trying to get on the record. Okay. Yeah. Former CIA director who has undermined this issue in the past and has done some things which are not cool. James Woolsey comes out and basically says this unidentified, I'm just giving general paraphrase. This is something that needs to be looked at and so forth. And he was a former CIA director. You've got John Brennan, another former CIA director, admitted that he didn't quite know what to think. Some of the phenomena we're going to be seeing continues to be unexplained. It might, in fact, be some type of phenomena that is the result of something that we don't yet understand, that could involve some type of activity that some might say constitutes a different form of life. As a former John Brennan. And let me take a second to make something else clear that it will help people understand what's going down. Whether you're Lou Elizondo or Christopher Mellon or Steve Justice or Jim Semivan or Herman Kahn, any of the members of the To the Stars Academy, when this thing was launched, it was launched with the backing of people within the DOD. It was giving them the necessary cover to do it. If they didn't have that backing, the DOD could reach out and end this anytime it wanted to. So they had support, enough to cover. And again, this was all put together in 2015, maybe into early 2016, over a long period of time. This was put together. And so there was clear understandings of what the game plan was, what the goal was, and so forth. And there were rules. Most people wouldn't maybe notice that, but it was easy for me. There were rules. In other words, we're going to do this. There's going to be a To the Stars Academy. You're going to take your stories to the New York Times. You're going to do interviews. But there are some rules that you have to follow. If you do not, you will lose our support. What were those rules? You certainly cannot break any non-disclosure agreements that you have, period. Mm-hmm. We're not leaving those. So anything that you're under non-disclosure, you can't say that. Secondly, you absolutely cannot release classified material of any kind until it's been declassified. You do that, you will lose our support. And the goal here is to get congressional hearings, not to convince the world out the gate there's extraterrestrials here. So you will not use the word extraterrestrial. And if you listen to the scores and scores of interviews that they have given, presentations they have made, and articles that have quoted them, and I don't think there is a single instance where any one of them ever used the term extraterrestrial. It may be one or two because it's easy to slip up there, but it just isn't there. Wow.
Are the congressional hearings probably the most important piece in this whole endgame?
It is the endgame.
Right.
I believe the purpose of the To the Stars Academy wasn't just to start an organization, raise some money, and maybe print some books and maybe do some research if they had the money to do it, though any research they would do, the government's already been doing for decades. But still, create an organization. And I get it. And that organization still hasn't gone away. And that organization is going to have a pretty substantial, a lot of fun after disclosure takes place. They've been on the train all these years. They're well positioned to be important players in the post-disclosure world. But the fundamental agenda was to get congressional hearings.
Right.
And so talking extraterrestrial, talking contactees, talking a lot, you don't go there. But still, they know there's an ET presence. Every single one of the To the Stars Academy people know there's an ET presence. So if you listen to them, they constantly walk right up to the edge of the pool. Maybe they put their toe in, maybe occasionally the foot in, maybe dangle a leg. They constantly do that, but they don't jump in the pool. So, except Bigelow. But Bigelow is not a member of the To the Stars Academy.
No.
And for whatever reason, either because he was asked to or he simply decided to, 5 months before the To the Stars Academy launch is when he tells Laura Larson on Laura Logan, I think, on 60 Minutes. And this is a billionaire, right? Mm-hmm. Who has an ongoing NASA contract for years to build space habitats, a lot of money involved. Nevertheless, tells her there's an extraterrestrial presence. And when she challenges him on it, he repeats it. So again, he could go there. He jumped in the pool, and Bob's right in the first car of the disclosure train, trust me. But they couldn't. And so you can see them struggling all this time, which wasn't supposed to happen. It was supposed to be over by the spring of 2017 to keep the issue going, but they can't just say there's an extraterrestrial presence. I can say that, and I can say it over and over again, and I can do what I'm doing right now because I understand that they can't say it. I'm okay with that. This is not a condemnation of them. They're doing what they have to do to get this done. And I totally support them. I've supported them from the day they turned up. But somebody's got to lock that back door.
Right.
So that when anybody gets cold feet or a section of the DOD, a bunch of people get together and say, we got to stop this, there's no way to get back out. They can't go backwards. And so, again, the situation continues to unfold, one person after another. You got 2 CIA directors that have gotten on board the train. Woolsey, of course, is the most interesting one for me. And then last summer, the former Deputy Secretary of Defense, David Norquist, gets on the disclosure train by announcing the formal existence of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force that was set up at the Office of Naval Intelligence. He just happens to let us know that. Well, it was set up, right, specifically to receive the request from the Senate Intel Committee, but just setting it up helped, again, to put the Navy in the disclosure train, which it already was, but also David Norquist just joined in. Bless his heart, okay? Mm-hmm. And then the former director, I mean, again, these are not low-level people here. And of course, and here's the point, the higher the level you are, the higher you are in the food chain, the more you need to be on that train. So some of these small officials and so forth, the press are not going to seek them out. The high-level people, oh yeah, you don't want to be on the platform when the train leaves. So John Radcliffe, right, in an interview with the author of that New York Times, New Yorker piece, Gideon Lewis Krause, he says this. Hang on, and this was interesting. He says, I'll get it in a second. Emphasize that the issue was no longer to be taken lightly. When we talk about sightings, he said, we are talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots, or have been picked up by satellite imagery that frankly engage in actions that are difficult to explain. Movement, 15,000 miles an hour. Movements that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for, or are traveling at speeds that exceed the sound barrier without a sonic boom.
I mean, that's stuff you wouldn't have heard mainstream, even a decade ago.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And if you'd heard it before 1991, he'd have been out the door so fast and probably being interrogated by the FBI. So he got on the disclosure. Right? And so this is continuing, and you're going to be more of this. Mm-hmm. More people are going to come forward as they decide, am I on that train or am I on the platform?
Yeah.
And there's 2 entities that need to get on that train real soon. And I'm going to repeat this frequently, and that's the Air Force and NASA.
Yeah.
The Air Force, which ran the Project Blue Book as a disinfo operation that was never intended to reach a result, and then allowed the Condon report to go down. That Air Force needs to get going. And then you've got NASA. Mm. Have people within NASA known about the ET presence since it was formed in 1958? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Am I demeaning NASA? No. NASA had no choice. NASA was not allowed to say anything about this issue or anything else that had national security implications under the very act that created it.
Yeah.
There would have been consequences. So NASA was between a rock and a hard place. No problem. NASA's done fantastic things, but did they know?
I'm less confident about the Air Force getting on board before it leaves. Look, you talk about the train, and the doors have got to close at some stage, and then it's too late to get on that train. Mm-hmm. But do you have a good sense of timing? Do you think the truth embargo is on its last legs? It's in the home straight, so to speak?
It is on its last legs. It's in the home stretch. And here's why. right? As I stated, I believed early on that the To the Stars Academy, which was a little confusing to a lot of people, the name initially was To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences. What the hell does that mean? The point is that there are a lot of people go, what is this about? What is this about? It's okay. But I was convinced early on, this was about getting congressional hearings. This is where this is headed. And everything that's happened since has confirmed, in my mind, that assessment. I watched as Luis Elizondo collected witness after witness, some of which were put on the Unidentified History Channel show, 2 series, 14 episodes, some in silhouette. I learned eventually that scores of other military people, seeing that the bar had clearly been lowered, that David Fravor wasn't in shackles, Kevin Day wasn't in a gulag somewhere, and in fact, they were getting very well received, that realized, hey, I've got a story, I know about this, I was involved, call Lou. So we don't know how many potential witnesses have contacted him, but the numbers could be large. And he's the guy. He's Mr. Everyman, brilliant, educated, and yet he's a guy you can sit down in a biker bar, have a beer with. So he's collecting witnesses. I'm watching that happen. And then in 2019, I learned that Mellon was giving briefings on the Hill. He was taking witnesses up there and briefing, not just anybody. He was briefing committee chairs and committee members of certain, and House members and Senate members of certain committees. See, there's 7 basic committees that are going to be involved primarily in the final end game of this. House and Senate Intel, House and Senate Armed Services, House and Senate Homeland Security, and the House Science Technology Committee. These are the 7. And I think those are the committee members he probably focused on. We know he briefed Rubio, we know he briefed Warmer, and a number of others, Shaheen. So, and he's up and briefing them. Why? Why do you take witnesses such as that Nimitz witnesses or any witnesses, military witnesses, up to talk to members of Congress? What? To entertain them? To show them you care? You only take witnesses about something like this to the Hill in order to prepare them for hearings, to convince them or begin the process of convincing them to hold hearings. That's why you do that. And so it was clear. They're moving to get congressional hearings, but they had a problem because the situation was not what they planned for. And the political situation in the United States it started off badly in 2017 and deteriorated from there. It was a mess. It was chaos. It was unprecedented. It was toxic. And so the idea that the Congress was going to come together to hold the most important hearings in history during those 4 years was not good. But they still had to move forward because nothing is guaranteed in this life. And so it was, as you know, there was an election and a new administration came to the White House. And something else that was non-trivial. A single party, the Democrats, took control of both houses of Congress. Okay, I noted that, and I knew that I'm not getting into partisan politics here. I knew that Biden as president and the Senate and the Democrats controlling both houses was much more favorable for proceeding with these hearings. The chaos was going to subside, some normalcy would be returned, and the fact that you've got both houses run by the same party meant that all the committee chairs are the same party. And so you don't have this problem where you're trying to get the House to hold committee, but the Senate is saying, screw you, we're not going to hold these hearings. Mm-hmm. And so you got everybody on board, basically, and now you can proceed. So I'm thinking, okay, that's good. What next is going to happen that's going to help confirm my assessment? And it didn't take long. A few weeks ago, we learned that Christopher Mellon, Luis Elizondo, and Steve Justice stepped out of the TTSA. And the rumors began. They were fired. The TTSA is finished. It's all folding up, whatever. No, it's not that at all. Why did they step out? Here is my assessment. Because after the administration, after the election, the new administration coming in, now the hearings can proceed, basically. There's still some issues to resolve, but it can proceed. And so the negotiations, the real negotiations, the nuts and bolts of actually putting on hearings like this is not some quick, get a couple of guys in here and talk. These are going to be the most important hearings ever. The McCarthy hearings, the Iran-Contra hearings, the 911 hearings will be trivial compared to the importance of these hearings. And so the negotiations have to happen. The Congress, it would not be appropriate for the Congress to be negotiating with the To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science and its multiple mission statement and its entertainment division. That's just not how that has to happen. They need to be negotiating with independent professionals operating as independent individuals of of rank and station. In other words, Mellon and Elizondo and apparently Justice needed, if they're going to be involved in those negotiations, then they needed to be on their own. And that really locked it down for me. But there was one aspect of that I wasn't clear on, and that is, why did Justice leave? And he's always stayed in the background, hardly said much of anything. But why did he leave? And then I had a guess, but that was confirmed. A couple of days ago, there was another article out. Harry Reid, who's been constantly dropping in on this issue. Mm-hmm. Harry is on that disclosure train big time. Obviously, he's the one that made the ATIP program happen. He was in the New York Times articles. He's been a supporter of this issue for a long time, privately, obviously, most of the time, but recently publicly. And he's dying. The good man is dying. And so would probably like to see all this happen before he leaves this planet. And so he just gave out another statement. And in that statement, he stated, and that got a lot of attention, that he was told and knew that Lockheed Martin, defense contractor, had materials from unidentified vehicles, UAPs, meaning alien spacecraft, that crash vehicles almost certainly. We knew that, and it was kind of in play, but he basically confirmed it and made it a news story. Now, why is that important? Steve Justice was an associate director of the Skunk Works at Lockheed Martin. The Skunk Works, everybody in this field knows the Skunk Works is a major player in dealing with ET technology. And I don't mean bits and pieces. I mean trying to understand the energy and propulsion systems of those craft, which they had in their possessions because they crashed, not the least of which being the one at Roswell, possibly another one in New Mexico. They didn't bury those craft in the ground or stick them in a warehouse like at the end of Indiana Jones. Mm-hmm. So he can speak directly to that, which is the defense contractor, the highly classified section of the defense contractors that were brought into the ET issue and the USAP programs. It's not all been, obviously, U.S. government activity. And that, you can imagine, would be some pretty damn powerful testimony. And Steve Justice would be the one to give that testimony. Steve Justice would be the one to, how would you say, developed, prepare, select other witnesses within the defense contractor world, including, of course, Lockheed Martin, who would turn up at these hearings. Because these hearings are not just going to be thrown together casually. There's two things about these hearings you can expect, guarantee it. One, virtually nothing but military witnesses and government contractors that have been working under classified status. There's going to be no civilians. I'm not going to be there. The general field, they're not going to be in these hearings. It's going to be military. These are all people that have already taken an oath in their work to defend the country, defend the nation, who will then be taking another oath to be in front of the committee. This is strong stuff. This is what you need to get the idea out and make it really clear what the hell's going on. All right. And so that's one thing. And secondly, there's something in mind here, but this is important. Forgive me. And these hearings have been promoted indirectly and addressed from time to time a lot of ways that have made it quite clear that what is coming is going to be viewed as a national security matter. Mm-hmm. Absolutely has to be that way. There's a whole lot of political careers on the line here. And so nobody was going to agree to hold hearings on how the Congress can fund a extraterrestrial welcoming center and a new extraterrestrial embassy for our friends that are coming. No, not going to do that. It's got to be national security. And so you hear the word threat, which is wrong. I shouldn't say that, but you hear the potential threat. You hear national security type terms, and people are concerned about that. And maybe they should be. I'm watching it closely. But that's how you have those hearings. What are, if any, the national security implications from the testimony of all these fine members of our former Air Force, or former members of our Air Force, or Navy, or CIA, whatever? National security. That's what you will expect. But that's more than enough. The purpose of the hearings that are coming are not to prove to the world there's an extraterrestrial present. Not to educate the world to the whole spectrum of history and science and everything else related to this phenomena. It's to get to disclosure. Just do that, okay?
Right.
And so you'll have days and days of testimony. Multiple committees will get involved. I told you the 7 that are the most likely. The intelligence committees being probably the big guns. And hundreds of millions of people will be watching these hearings, even more than the O.J. Simpson trial. And they'll be watching these hearings around the world. And after X amount of such testimony, then the President of the United States will be in the right place to be able to do what needs to be done.
Right.
And that is to go in front of the American people and say these words. Not, guess what? There's extraterrestrials here. About decades. We just couldn't tell you. But I'm telling you today, okay? And are you happy? No. The President will be able to go in front of the American people and say, look, I have been, like you, watching this extraordinary testimony from members of our armed services, intelligence agencies, even government contractors for these many, many days. I have talked about this testimony with my top advisors, as well as key people at the Department of Defense, as well as congressional leaders. And I am here today to say to you that it is clear to me and to my advisors that this testimony confirms there is an extraterrestrial presence, a non-human intelligence with non-human created craft, almost certainly from outside the planet, and almost equally certainly from another star system.
Right.
And we are going to continue these hearings. We're going to expand the areas of inquiry, and I'm going to do as your president the best I can to inform you as much as I can about what is known about this phenomena within some national security restraints. But you're going to know very soon a hell of a lot more than you know now.
Right.
That's where this is going. The political situation is stabilized. So what is the single most important timing factor here that might determine when these hearings will take place? Corona. Mm-hmm. Things have not gone ideally like we wanted them to, but we're finally making progress. These hearings have to be on the Hill. They have to be in person. This is not going to be Zoom, I can assure you.
Right.
It has to be safe for the journalists, for public, for the witnesses, for the members. And so when will that be? Well, there's 2 factors that determine that. One, the vaccination rollout. Right now, about 1/3 of the American people are vaccinated. That's pretty good. And a lot more are going to get vaccinated over the next 45 days, 60 days. As that number grows and grows and grows and grows, without getting into the idea of herd immunity, certainly the ability to hold these hearings will be profoundly improved. But there's another factor. This is the wild card. Because the world did not deal with this pandemic the way it needed to, in many levels, in many ways, there's plenty of blame to go around. The pandemic is still raging. Not so much here, but in other countries. The two worst are, of course, India and Brazil. And the result of the fact that this pandemic is spread so far, lasted so long, is the nature of virology. Mm-hmm. That the more people who get infected, the more viruses that replicate, the more often they replicate, the longer this goes on, the greater the chance of a very, very bad variant turning up. There are already many variants, but and they may prove a problem, but there's also the potential for a really nasty variant. And for those that are struggling with that idea, I'll boil it down this way. If you buy one lottery ticket, the chances of winning the Powerball about 160 million to 1. Mm-hmm. If you buy 160 million lottery tickets, the chances of winning are very good.
Right.
And so what's happening is that the nature, the way the virus pandemic unfolded, and the way the world's nations handled it, is they've been buying millions and millions and millions of lottery tickets, and they may win the lottery. And in this case, that win would be the equivalent of what happened in 2019, when a variant of the 2018 flu, which is an H1N1, I forget which one. Anyway, the Spanish flu they call it, mm-hmm. Which the first year wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. It was flu, but not too bad. A variant developed in Europe. I think Bulgaria, I forget the country, and it was a killer variant, and it spread right back to the United States and killed millions and millions and millions of people. That could happen this time. But hey, what can you do? And stuff, depending on how the variant goes, hopefully, I don't think that is going to turn up before we're able to move forward. But it is still an issue, particularly if it affects the vaccines. But that's it. Technically, if it wasn't for that, they could start holding these hearings tomorrow. There's plenty of witnesses. The public is ready. The Met press is ready. I'm going to speculate at this point, August.
Okay.
Be the soonest we can have them, which will be after the report. Mm-hmm. Now, one of my biggest concerns was this. The report to me is not a big deal, but it could be a problem in that, okay, Rubio, the Senate Intel Committee wanted information from these agencies. Great. But what if elements of the national security state, military intelligence complex that are opposed to this, and there are plenty that are, I assure you, somehow got influence. They got in there. They got some control, and as a result, made sure that when this report comes out, it's a bunch of nothing burgers with no mayonnaise, no special sauce, mm-hmm. just light fluff, which could happen because they've been doing that for 75 years. I mean, that's one of the key jobs of the military intelligence complex is to run the truth embargo. And if they did that, it would completely undercut the hearing initiative. It would give all the members of Congress an excuse to say, I can't touch this. I mean, there's nothing there. There's no there. And so I was worried that could happen. On the other hand, if the hearings had started before this report and were anything like I expected, they would have no choice. They would go out of their way to dish up great stuff because they couldn't be seen. It's stonewalling the process at that point. The train's leaving the station. So it was worried me. However, based upon what I'm getting, not only from public sources, but from some inside sources, inside for me, not super special, but is that they're going to probably play it straight, which is why it was notable that another article just appeared that the Inspector General of the DOD has announced that they're going to be pulling this together. Mm-hmm. It's a significant thing. Inspector General is a very powerful entity in the Department of Defense. So, and people got all worked up about that. No, it is exactly what you expect. This is the machinery being put together to start assembling the information, and they're publicly acknowledging that, making it that much more difficult to suddenly come up with nothing but an empty box. So I believe the report is going to be substantive. They're not going to drag any ETs out of the warehouses, dead ETs, and put them in glass cases and stick them in the Congress. No. But they're going to produce some substantive stuff, which is going to then further reinforce the process underway, making it even easier for the Congress to hold these hearings.
Right.
So the report comes out June 15, June 20, maybe a little later. The hearing negotiations get underway, and those hearings should be in August. That's my call.
All right, well, we're just about at the end of it, Steve, but just a couple of what-if questions.
I'll give you some short answers. Hit me with stuff, I'll give you
Okay, so what would happen if formal contact took place without a prior disclosure event? Say something happened before the hearings.
You mean Independence Day?
Yeah.
That would be bad.
Well, at least we know they exist.
It would be very, very bad. If the ETs wanted to do that, they've had 75 years to do it. But you may notice that the number of sightings has been rather remarkable.
Yes.
They're all over the place, okay? I don't think that's an accident. I think this is the ET's way. Because why do they have to be seen at all? This is the ET's way of just sort of keeping things cooking, keeping the heat on the pot, helping to move forward. They're doing more to help this process than I am, frankly. Mm-hmm. So, but the actual open contact, no. However, as I've said countless times, I believe I know what the To the Stars Academy agenda is. I think I know what the ET agenda is as well, at least one part of it. Mm-hmm. And that is that, and they've been facilitating this, is that once we've had those hearings and once the president has confirmed the ET presence and the prime minister of the UK and the prime minister of Canada, the president of France, the president of China, the president of Russia have confirmed the ET presence, well, you know what's going to happen next, don't you, Dean? Hey, everybody's going to turn on their TVs and watch and watch and watch. They're going to go look for documentaries. They're going to read books. It's going to be ET insanity. Mm-hmm. It's going to go only in a way that America can be insane and the capitalist world. Yeah. ET all the time, 24/7. And after about a year or so, maybe 2 years, the world's going to be kind of up to speed on almost all of the history of this, with some national security exceptions. In other words, we're going to be stuffed with information and knowledge about the ET issue. Yep. And then open formal contact in a responsible way. I don't know how it would take place. Not landing on the White House lawn, I assure you, but contact between this group of ETs that are engaging with us and governments will take place. That's the era of open contact. I put it out at 2 years. So if we have disclosure in August, then August of 2023, we could very well have open contact, which of course is a whole nother.
Yeah.
That takes us into the post-open contact world. But I also believe that what is preventing that from happening, that incredible event, is the disclosure. We can't get it done.
Yep.
If we got disclosure done back under Clinton, hell, we'd probably already be 12, 13 years into the post-contact, open contact era. And we would be thinking about all kinds of interesting things related to that and not about who's got the best hypersonic nuclear war missile, Russia or the United States. By the way, that's been in the news a lot lately. Mm-hmm. Or thinking about, can we make a submarine better than the one that Russia just announced? It's capable of launching 200-mile-an-hour nuclear-tipped torpedoes. I'm not making this up. That will then explode off our coast and inundate it with tsunamis. We wouldn't be talking about, the next war is going to be with China. We would the list of things we wouldn't be talking about would be different, but we aren't. We didn't get disclosure back then. Clinton was stonewalled. Mm-hmm. And so now we get it now. And I'll tell you, we can't get it soon enough, because you don't have to read much about the news today to know that we are dancing on the razor's edge right now. Right. There's article after article starting to come out. I say article after article, more than usual, but it's not on the CNN, MSNBC News, or even Fox, that there's great risk of war with China, a breakout in Taiwan, the South China Sea, the Donbass, People are bunkering up, and we are absolutely, and have been really since 1991. We are in Cold War II.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists recently put the doomsday clock to 100 seconds to midnight. Closest it's ever been, closer than the Cuban Missile Crisis. So in other words, we're still in the position to blow everything up. And so the sooner we're talking about the post-disclosure world, the sooner we're talking about, ETs are in contact with our governments, and not about how the hell we're going to blow each other up, the better. So that's why I do what I do, Dean. And not because I'm in love with extraterrestrials, not because I want everybody to know the truth, but because it may be the only thing, finally resolving this issue and moving forward, that will finally get us off the road that we have been on for 10,000 years, which is endless war with bigger and bigger weapons until now we can pretty much annihilate everything. So we either get it over with and blow ourselves up so other animals can eventually evolve and have some fun on this planet, or we move on and do what has been before us for 75 years, announce the extraterrestrial presence, await open contact, and maybe try to build a better planet and a better civilization.
And maybe that's why we're seeing a lot more UFOs now, and why ET may be behind the scenes facilitating disclosure and trying to hurry it up.
They've always been doing that. People have been seeing UAPs for 75 years. There have been millions of sightings. One thing people don't ask is, I saw something, and I'm pretty sure it's a UAP or an extraterrestrial craft. The question is, why are you seeing it? What are they doing? Obviously, they're going from one place to another, but why? Mm-hmm. And if they are an advanced civilization, hundreds, thousands of years ahead of us, hell, we're on the verge of complete stealth technology. They can't fly around and not be visible to the human eye or to radar. So where are they going, and what are they doing, and why are they visible? I think the answer is simple. Being seen, going about, whatever their intentions are, just being seen for the hell of it, was their way of keeping this issue alive, educating the public, and letting governments know there's nothing you can do about our presence here. We can be seen anytime we want. So you might want to think about moving forward, tell your citizens that we're here so we can start engaging you on a higher level. I think that's one of the reasons they're seen as much, and I think so the ETs in my mind have process along from the get-go, and I assume, and I don't know for sure, but I hope it's the case that the reason for that is because they understand, and by they I mean all the various groups that are here. There are a number of them, 4, 5, 6, 7. They understand that this formal disclosure type event that we've been shooting for is the way to do it. It is the proper way to do it. They're not here to turn everything upside down. They're not here to make all the human race go nuts. They're not here to scare the hell out of us. They're here for a more serious and I think responsible reason, which hopefully we'll know about soon. And therefore, we must disclose their reality to us, our presence to ourselves, and then engage that and learn about that. And then they can have open contact without disrupting our civilization. I hope to God that is the reason. I think it is. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. All right, we'll see.
Yeah.
But this is, you now and your listeners and viewers have now got what I call the bigger picture, which has some dots connected that in order to try to see it, because not all the pixels are there, so that they can better understand what is happening now in virtually real time, at warp speed, one after another event. I think it'll help them understand the why of that, and they can enjoy this extraordinary moment in history a lot more. Because hey, let me tell you, what we're living through, no other generation ever has seen this. This is Well, I think Ancient Aliens might have been dealing with Egyptians on a limited way, but in terms of the full engagement of the planet at a time when we're a technological global civil, no, this is as good as it gets. We're going to experience it. We're going to be alive while it happens. We just need the governments of the world, and particularly the United States government, to end this truth embargo.
And this brings me to my last question. It's probably a mischievous one, but what happens if another country undermines the US and comes out and announces disclosure and they have actual evidence?
From your lips to the DOD's ears. I've mentioned this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. We're not the only nation. We have other nations out there I think would love to embarrass us, would love the political and geopolitical glory of being the first nation to confirm. So if we don't get on with this, that's going to happen. It won't alter the long term. We'll enter the post-disclosure world and hopefully have open contact in a couple of years. But the United States will lose an unbelievable opportunity. Our president will lose an extraordinary opportunity. We will be significantly diminished on the world stage. Because if another nation goes first, that head of state in that nation will go down in history for being the trigger to the most profound event in human history. And the United States will go down as the nation that lied to its people for 75 years right up until the day another nation confirmed it. And only then did we think that the American people could handle that truth. And that's not going to play well.
No.
We're going to lose more respect. God knows how diminished we've become in the last 4 years. More respect, less influence. It's going to be a major embarrassment. And then all of the politicians and all of the military people and everybody that's helped surface that truth embargo are not going to be in the train. Well, let me put it this way. They're still on the train. Okay? They can still say, I'm on the train. I've been helping. I did this. I did that. I realized that President so-and-so just made the announcement of this other country, but I'm on the train. And unfortunately, though, the train is going to have the logos for that other country on every car. So you're on somebody else's train, but you are on the disclosure train. And that's better than nothing. And this is tricky because we have to have the hearings. It just can't come out of the blue unless the president were to learn that another nation was going to preempt us, in which case the president might take immediate action. Call together an emergency meeting and say, look, I'm going to confirm this now, but we're going to launch hearings simultaneous. In other words, look, I've looked into this privately. It turns out, my God, it is real. We are immediately launching hearings to get information out to you. Boom, bada, boom, which he could do, and we'd be first. That gets doable. It would take the president would have to be bold. Right? Yeah. And the president would have to have advanced information. If I was another nation, I sure as hell wouldn't let it get out. I'd suddenly, boom, there it is. Too bad, America. We did it first. Tough. So that's another, what the hell? History's messy.
Yeah.
I've done everything I can to help advance this process. I've done everything I can in my country, which I do love, to encourage my government to do this. If they don't, I'm not going to lose any sleep over.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Steve, where can people go to learn more about the Paradigm Research Group? ParadigmResearchGroup.org. Yep.
Obviously, there's a lot there, huge amount there on the TTSA, 12,000 news articles, including 750 articles related to the TTSA and these unfolding developments. You can subscribe to my free updates list there as well. There's a contribution page, of course. Then the Disclosure Wire, which is a podcast I'm eventually going to move on with. I do have it up. I have a site and I have an introductory video. That's disclosurewire.org. So there's that. now that's how you can reach me and so forth. And I, well, sometimes I get a little emotional. This has been a long road.
It's been a long road.
25 years for me. I have colleagues that have been at this for 45 years. Stanton Friedman was after it 50 years. He was trying to move this forward. On the day he died, he was coming back from another lecture and died in the airport. Roger Lear was doing this to the day he died of a heart attack, and he was going out trying to do stuff, trying to continue his work. Died of a heart attack in the doctor's office. We've lost some of the witnesses recently. It's time for the human race to move forward with building a non-destructive, viable civilization. It's not doing that now. In fact, it's devolving. It's retrograding, and it's at risk. We have an opportunity and a chance to do that, and not accidentally. It involves extraterrestrials, their presence, and being able to engage that as a planet, and ultimately achieve a open contact era where a lot of interesting things are possible. And it can happen very soon, right now. We have a chance. If somehow this gets away from us, I don't think it will. I have no confidence that the 21st century will work out. I mean, if somehow the government's managed to dodge this and the ETs don't force the action, civilization will not get through the 21st century. Not a chance in hell. You will literally have destruction. And I'm not destruction, I mean annihilation.
Yeah.
You will have an unlivable biosphere. You will have billions of people dead. You will have radioactivity everywhere. And most ETs, I think, won't even drop by for another 1,000 years. If you idiots are willing to do that, hey, there's a lot of planets in this galaxy.
Yeah.
We'll go talk to them. So that's what's at stake here. It's a lot at stake. And the fact that more people don't know that is the government's fault, not the public's fault. They'd love to know this stuff. The government has prevented them from knowing these things. And so they don't really understand what's at stake. And so, again, when it comes to the problems and foibles of this issue, and I don't blame the researchers and the UAPT committee. I don't blame the journalists. I don't blame the documentarists. I don't blame the witnesses by any means. They have their problems and faults. The blame falls squarely on the United States government and its policy of embargo on this information. Same for Canada, same for UK, France, Russia, China, name them all. That's where the blame lies. It is a political problem. A political national security-based issue that is being resolved. The people, by God, have done an unbelievable job and effort to try to get this resolved in spite of the government's intransigence, which in America is less justified because we're a democratic republic, for God's sakes. I mean, some of these authoritarian countries, a little tougher, not here. And so we're doing in this country what Russia is doing and what China is doing, what North Korea is doing. They've embargoed as well as national security states, the real ones. We are a democratic republic and we're doing it. So it would be nice if we would end it. That would be a nice symmetry, all right? Let the leading democracy in this world, devoted to truth, justice, and the rule of law, let it hopefully be the first nation to end this embargo. I think I've repeated that enough. So,
yep. Well, Steve, I really appreciate your time. It's been a long chat, but you keep fighting the good fight, and we'll talk again soon.
We will. If you get any interesting feedback, let me know, and I'm happy to do another one whenever you're ready.
Certainly will.
That's Paradigm Research Group Executive Director Stephen Bassett. We'll present the second part of that interview next month. Well, a UFO field investigator can seem like a glamorous job. Perhaps that's the impression given by Hollywood. The truth is, if you like to interview people, are good with numbers and have a nose for solving a mystery, you're probably a good fit to become a UFO field investigator. The main ingredient, though, is one that many won't think about. A UFO investigator needs to have a slight dose of healthy skepticism. This fact was borne home recently in our interview with ace investigator Chuck Zukowski and backed up by the top Southern California UFO sleuth Earl Grey Anderson.
They are everywhere. I had one woman who she put in a UFO report, and she said that a UFO was hovering over her daughter's high school graduation. And the more I talked with her, the more familiar this UFO sounded. And finally I said, did they take like overhead film of your daughter's graduation? And it's like, oh yes, it's a lovely film. It's like, I think that I know what your UFO was. And I explained to her what she was what she was describing. And and you have to be sweet to people, It's not like I said, well, you saw a drone, and you silly person. No, if somebody hasn't seen something like that, I mean, that's another thing. And I think a service that MUFON provides for people is to explain what they saw, if we're able to figure out what prosaic object that was. Sure. But, then we have other cases where, I had one case that was in Azusa, California here, where there were two women who took chase after a UFO, and they got caught in a cul-de-sac. And they saw it was two objects. They were orb-shaped spherical UFOs, and they were heading towards the San Gabriel Mountains there. And they got caught in a cul-de-sac where they couldn't get out, and they thought that their chase was over. And suddenly there was this bright light that was off to the side, and they turned around, and there's this thing that looked like it came out of a science fiction film, hovering soundlessly over this house, less than 100 feet away from them. It's a pretty wild story, but what was interesting is that there was a gentleman in the next town over, about 3 miles away, who also put in a report of the exact same thing. Right. So we had multiple witnesses that were unconnected, and the deeper that I went into that case, the more it seemed to manifest for me that something very unusual.
One of California's
top
UFO field investigators, Earl Grey Anderson, says earning the trust of the people making the report is important. Anderson says a UFO investigator first needs to understand where the person making the report is coming from. And he says they've seen something in the sky that we're told doesn't exist. They are dealing with a little personal shock of their own. That's coming up next on the Alien Revealed Live Files. Thanks for being with us. Don't forget to check out our site at arlhub.com. That's arlhub.com. And as always, keep looking upwards and take care.